will be filled. For the earth will be filled. For the earth will be filled. Filled with the knowledge of the Lord. The Adonai, His waters cover the sea. All will know the Lord. In the kingdom it will be. We want to know you, and with our life show you. Give thanks for all that you have done. Exalt and we praise you. We lift up, we raise you. To the Adonai we will run. To the knowledge of the Lord we will run. Where you are and you will always be. Show your name, your face, and praise to me. You were, you are, and you will always be. Show your name and face, praise to me. For the earth will be filled, keep alive. For the earth will be filled, keep alive. For the earth will be filled, keep alive. Filled with the knowledge of the Lord. The Adonai, His waters cover the sea. All who know the Lord, in the kingdom it will be. We want to know you, and with our life show you. Give you thanks for all that you have done. Exalt and we praise you. We lift up, we raise you. To the Adonai we will run. The Adonai, the Adonai. The waters cover the sea. All will know the Lord. In the kingdom it will be. Oh, we want to know you, and with our life show you. Give you thanks for all you have done. Exalt and we praise you. Lift up and we raise you. To the Adonai we will run. To the knowledge of the Lord we will run. in all of its details to us if we want to know, if we seek, if we run after it and search for it. I thank you, Abba, that your Ruach is going to braid together with your Torah today and show us who you are and why you do what you do. Amen. And so there were tens of thousands of Gentiles, and there were 98% of them were Gentiles, which is why I'm saying Gentiles, that said, we are going to return to the Hebrew roots of the Bible. If they just said Jewish roots, everything would have been different. Everything, because they would have communicated differently. They would have been looking for something different, which is Judaism. But because they couldn't deal with the word Judaism, and by the way, I would say, from my experience, most of them still can't. Everything would have been different if they had just said, we're going to look at Judaism. But they didn't. And so they ended up calling this thing, this movement, the Sacred Name Movement. And I spent years arguing, debating, talking with, helping, encouraging, rebuking Gentiles, every one of them was Gentiles, to get away from worrying about the name. Now last year at this Torah portion, the Era, I taught about the name of God, that it's Yehovah. I gave all the evidence to show that Jewish people have always written the name Yehovah. That never stopped. And we have all the evidence from, God bless him, Nehemiah Gordon, who did exhaustive research and has hundreds of people out there in the world scouring every ancient manuscript to find how did the Jews write God's name? Because everybody said, oh, you can't say the name's lost, everybody has to avoid that name, Yehovah. Well, last year I did the research and I did the study, and to me it was extremely convincing, extremely clear. So if you haven't heard that teaching, it's from last year at this Torah portion, the Era. And you might want to watch that. It was very good. I mean, it was mind-blowing for me because I didn't know any of this. I just said, we don't know how to pronounce it because Jews never pronounced it. Not true at all. So we're going to deal with two different things today. I'm just going to touch on the actual name of God just for a little bit. But the bulk of the teaching is, what does it really mean? What does his name mean? Like when God said, I never showed myself as Yod He Vav He, Yehovah, whatever that is. I say it's Yehovah. That I never showed myself as Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then you go back in the Bible and it says, I am Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's very confusing. Does that make sense? He says, I never revealed myself as Michael. And then you go back and you look and it says, Michael this to Abraham, Michael that to Isaac, Michael that to Jacob. It is very confusing. Why did he say he never? So that's what I'm going to deal with. And what does it really mean? So I want you to forget about the name. Nobody cares. God doesn't care. God doesn't care if you say Yehovah. He doesn't care. He wants us to know him. Period. And if that means he's telling us his name, great. We know his name. Just, you need to relax about it. Everybody needs to relax about his name. It's no big deal. But what it means is everything. So the name of the teaching is Know My Name. Know My Name. Who that? Yehovah. Who that? That's who it is. So what I'm looking for is what God says about who he wants to know his name. That's what I want to know. Because if he doesn't want anybody to know his name, he wouldn't say it. And then he wouldn't explain it. But if he wants people to know his name, he'll say, I want you to know this. And here's what it means. Very simple. So that's what I'm looking for. Who dat? It's Yehovah. Exodus chapter 6. God spoke to Moshe and he said to him, I am Yod He Vav He, the Tetragrammaton. That's what the rabbis call it. The it just sounds so scary. The Tetragrammaton. Along with the, what are the cars that become people?
Transformers.
Transformers. It sounds like a Transformer name. Tetragrammaton. That's what we call it. Why? Because they were afraid to say Yehovah. Because they were afraid to say Yehovah. And that's the only reason. So they turned it into this big mystical name, Tetragrammaton. So if you're reading in the like Rashi and people like that, the rabbis, don't get freaked out when they say Tetragrammaton. All it means is 4-letter name. That's all it means. I am Yod He Vav He, Yehovah maybe. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. But by my name, Yehovah, I didn't become known to them. Oh, really? You never called yourself Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Go back and read the text. He says it 1,000 times to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God is lying.
No, he's not.
Who says? He says, I didn't make myself known by Yehovah. Then you go back and it says, I'm Yehovah. So obviously it is not to be taken at face value. If you take it at face value, you have to come up with one of two things. Either he's lying or the writer didn't know what he was talking about. That's all you can come up with. So we got to figure this out. I did not become known to them by Yehovah. And also I established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings. I heard the moans of the children of Israel, who Egypt was holding in bondage, and I remembered my covenant. So tell the children of Israel, I am Yehovah. I am Yod He Vav He. And I'll take you out from under the burdens of Egypt, and I'll redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and I'll take you to me as a people, and I will be a God to you, and you will know that I am Yehovah, or Yod He Vav He, or the Tetragrammaton, your God. It's very confusing. So it sounds like he changed his mind. He says, I never told it to Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, even though it's there in the text. But now, go tell the children of Israel that's my name. Oh, really? It cannot be taken at face value, and I'll show you why I say that. You will know that I am Yehovah, or Yod He Vav He, your God, who has brought you out. I'll bring you to the land concerning which I raised my hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I am Yod He Vav He. Okay, so we got a problem here. Unless we just take it at face value and then ditch all the times he says Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do you understand? I've said it now 8 times. You get what I'm saying? We got a big problem here. Because the text clearly says Yehovah to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob. But he says, I didn't make myself known as Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But to you guys in Egypt, I am Yehovah. Says it twice. You follow what I'm saying? Okay, so we got a problem. So before we deal with the problem, let's deal with the name. Hopefully I can help alleviate your fears of Yehovah. So you're not Jewish, most of you, so you weren't raised. Don't say that. You weren't raised with that. Don't say that. Right. We weren't allowed to say Yehovah. Like the Orthodox, they're not even allowed to say Yod He Vav He. They have to say Yod Ke Vav Ke. Did you know that? Yeah. They're not allowed to say Elohim. They have to say Elohim. They have to change a letter. And they don't even say that. They just say Hashem, the name. So they're putting guards around guards, so that a stupid little kid who's reformed, growing up in America, it ends up, hey, God, don't say that. You don't say, oh God, I said it. It's craziness. So here's the Hebrew. There's 3 vowels. Yod, He, Vav, He are the letters. Yod, He, Vav, He are the letters. But the vowels are, but there's no vowels in the Torah, are there?
No. Yes, there are.
No, there are not. So there's no vowels in the Torah, but there are vowels later on in the Masoretic text from the 2nd century. So anything when we're talking about vowels, they weren't written down. They were all known verbally. They were transmitted verbally, like what the vowels were supposed to be. And so by the 2nd century Masoretic text, the scribes started writing the vowels. And this is what they wrote since the 2nd century. A shva under the yod, a cholam between, above the hey and before the vav, and then a kamatz underneath the vav. That reads, you would think, Yehovah. Yehovah. But it's not Yeh, it's Yeh. Because, and this is from BneiMitzvahAcademy.com, I looked it up because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe this, so I looked it up. And I found it. The vowel is 2 vertical dots. There's different ways to write You can do 2 dots horizontally, you can do 3 dots in a pyramid, upside down pyramid, or you can do a shva. Vowel is 2 vertical dots. The vowel shva is more complicated. If you see 2 vertical dots underneath the first letter, like this, underneath the first letter of the Hebrew word, then the vowel is a vocal shva and makes an sound. So how would you pronounce yod shva? Yeah. Not Yehovah, Yehovah. Yeah. Whoop. Ho, the cholam is an O. Yehovah. So he says it makes an S sound. However, if you find the 2 vertical dots under any other letter, not the first letter, then it's just a stop sign. It's just you just stop, like Y. So if this was not the first letter, it'd be Yehovah. But it's the first letter, so it's Yehovah. Now that's good Hebrew. So I was like, wait a minute. What does it say in the Hasidic text? Or how about Sepharia? Ooh, Sepharia. So I looked up both, and both of them are written like this. Yehovah. That's from the Hasidic text and from Sepharia. So nobody can tell me that Jews don't write Yehovah. Plus all the thousands and thousands of texts that Nehemiah Gordon has found. So if you can't believe that so far, go listen to the teaching from last year from Ve'era. And I lay out all the facts. So this to me is extremely convincing that his name is Yehovah. Now he said to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, I did not make myself known as Yehovah. Then you go read the text and it has this. To Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob. So either what?
Liar.
God is lying, or what?
He's saying something else.
Or the writer screwed it up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Or it's not to be taken at face value. It's not to be taken at face value. You cannot read these words at face value, because if you do, God's a liar. So it must be saying something else other than, I didn't say my name was Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So what is he saying? Now we're going to deal with that. Well, first we'll give you some more evidence. This is in the teaching from last year. This is just 2. This is from the Aleppo Codex, which is the oldest surviving full manuscript of the Hebrew Bible. It's from Tiberias, which is in Israel, from the 900s. Endorsed by Maimonides. He's the big boy. All other texts are checked against this rubric, because this is the good one. In 2 Kings, look what it says. What does that say? Yeah, but what does it say? Read it. Yehovah. Okay? Yeshayahu said, here's a sign for you from Yehovah, that Yehovah. Now where is that? Where is that?
Second.
Up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did it backwards. This is Yeho. See the cholam? Va. This is Yehovah. This doesn't have the cholam. That's not a cholam. That's from the above line. This says Yehavah. It doesn't have the cholam.
Oh, okay.
So it says, here's a sign for you from Yehovah that Yehovah will do what he said. Do you want the shadow to go 10 steps back? So this has one right after the other, Yehovah, Yehovah. Now, in it, there are 7 instances in this codex where it says Yehovah. But then everything else, it's missing the cholam like this, and it says Yehovah. Here's another one. This says Yehovah. Okay, there's another one. Kohanim could not stand to serve before the cloud because the glory of Yehovah filled the house of Yehovah. Here's Yehovah, there's the cholam, and this says Yehovah. All right? So sometimes you could see the cholam, sometimes you couldn't. But it's obviously Yehovah because it has the cholam. All right, so that's pretty clear evidence. Now we're going to talk about what does he mean by, I didn't make myself known as Yehovah. Sheesh, got me doing it. I didn't make myself known as Yehovah to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but to you guys, I'm Yehovah. So he says, I am Yehovah. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but with my name Yehovah, I did not become known to them. Now Rashi says this. He just makes it really, really simple. With El Shaddai, with Almighty God, I made promises to them. That's the answer. What is he saying?
He only made the promise, it wasn't fulfilled till later.
What is he saying about the name? The name El Shaddai.
The name El Shaddai is a promise.
Right. The name El Shaddai is the one he made the promises with. That's what he's saying. Super simple. He didn't make the promises as Yehovah. Do you follow that?
Yeah.
He made the promises as what? El Shaddai. So El Shaddai is the promise guy. Yehovah is something else. Does that make sense? It's a role. It's a title. It's a role. I'll show you more what I mean. So he says, I made promises to them, in all of which I said to them, I'm El Shaddai. In other words, every promise made, he said, I am El Shaddai. That's the promise maker. But with my name Yehovah, I didn't become known to them. It is not written here, Lo Hodati, which means I didn't make known to them the name. It's written, Lo Nodati, which means I didn't become known. Do you see the difference? I'll show you more about what I mean. I'll make it clearer. So he says, it's written here, it's not written, Lo Hodati, my name Yehovah, I did not make known to them, but rather it's written, Lo Nodati, I did not become known. In other words, I was not recognized by them with my attribute of, what does that say?
Keeping faith.
Keeping faith. In other words, I said it as who? El Shaddai, but I didn't fulfill it. Yeah, you starting to see it? Okay, we'll keep going. By dint of which my name is called Yehovah. What does that mean? By dint of which my name is called. That's old world language. You know what that means? That's how I'm going to fulfill it, as Yehovah. He's saying I made the promise as El Shaddai, but I'm going to fulfill it as, you see it? Yehovah, which means that I'm faithful to verify my words. For I made promises to them, but I did not fulfill them. I didn't fulfill them. So, who made the promises? El Shaddai. What he's saying, and you can see it in the Hebrew. If your Hebrew was good, you would understand this. If your Hebrew's not good, you got to trust me. This is really, really precise, beautiful clue in the Hebrew. Lo hoda'ati, which means showing something, making known something, a noun. But lo noda'ati means I'm showing. And it doesn't say that. It says, I'm showing something, not I didn't show myself as. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's one letter, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Very fine distinction.
Very fine distinction. I'll show you more about what I mean. So let's talk about this, the fact that he made the promises as El Shaddai. Genesis 17:1, God said, I am El Shaddai, walk before me and be perfect. And then he circumcised himself. Who's this talking to? Who's El Shaddai talking to? Abraham, Avram, right. He says, I'm El Shaddai, I'm making you a promise of everything. Now, circumcise yourself. Genesis 28:3, El Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful and multiply. This is when Jacob is fleeing from his parents, Isaac and Rachel. Rebecca. Isaac and Rebecca, and Jacob is blessing him before he runs, and he says, El Shaddai bless you. He says, El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and multiply. And then later, when probably the same day as Jacob is leaving Israel, he stops at Bethel, which is the house of God at Jerusalem. Angels of God were ascending and descending. Jehovah was standing above it. Who was standing above it?
Jehovah.
That's what it says in the text. Jehovah was standing above it and said, I am Jehovah. And he's talking to Jacob. God, a God of Abraham and God of Isaac, the land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your seed. So it sounds like who's giving the promise? Who's giving the promise? Yehovah. But I thought it was El Shaddai that gives the promise, not Yehovah. So guess what? It's clarified for us in Genesis 48:3. Jacob tells his child, Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. See? It was El Shaddai that promised him the land, not Yehovah. He shows up. He says, I am Yehovah. And then El Shaddai blesses him and gives him the promise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't say that if it didn't say this, didn't give us this clue in Genesis 48. But there it is. Genesis 28, El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you. This is when Jacob is fleeing Esau. Genesis 35:11, to Jacob, I am El Shaddai, be fruitful and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply when he's returning to Bethel later on. So now Shaddai shows up and blesses him and promises again. Genesis 49, El Shaddai bless you with every kind of blessing. This is Jacob talking to Joseph. Every single time God promised the land and the extension of the people and the seed increasing and all the world would be blessed by the Jews, who was it that said that?
El Shaddai.
El Shaddai, every single time. Okay, there's proof in the text. So now let's get this straight in our head about what he meant by, I didn't show myself as Yehovah. I showed the attribute of Yehovah, the thing, the noun, the attribute, the faithfulness is Yehovah. But with my name, Yehovah, I did not become known to them, not lo hodati, but rather lo nodati. I was not recognized by them with my attribute of faithfulness. I was not recognized by them with my attribute of keeping faith. This is why my name is called Yehovah, faithful. Now these are Rashi's words. This is why I'm called Yehovah. Why is he called Yehovah? Because I'm faithful to verify my words, for I made promises to them, but I did not fulfill them while they were alive. Abraham, did he receive what he was promised?
No.
Did Isaac receive what he was promised?
No.
Did Jacob receive anything that he was promised?
It will be in the kingdom.
So, obviously, Yehovah didn't fulfill anything. Nothing. You ever heard that before?
God didn't fulfill anything he said. He's going to, but he hasn't yet. Then he'll be, listen to what I'm going to say. When he does, when he says, okay, Shaddai told you, now, Yehovah, here, I'm going to give it to you and fulfill it. That's going to be in the kingdom. Then the person who's receiving what he was promised will know God as Yehovah. Does that make sense?
Yes, in the kingdom.
Okay, that's what he's saying. Now, that's what the rabbis say. I think he's right. This is really hard to get your head wrapped around. But I believe he's right. And I've given you some. Oh, wait, here. Verse 9, we're going to come back to this. Why? Because Yehovah represents the divine standard of mercy. Every time I read this in the rabbi's writings, I went like this. I didn't like it. I'd just go blind. Like, what? I don't know what that means. And I would just kind of like veg out. I didn't like those words. I thought, that's ridiculous. So like God is bifurcated, and part of him is mercy, and part of him is, what's the other one? Justice. I don't like that. Now I understand it. Elohim is the one that's justice. The right hand of justice, vengeance, etc. Yeah? The mercy, the kindness of saying, hey, look, should I promise you now, Yehovah, I'm going to give it to you. That's mercy. That's Yehovah. Now I think I'm starting to understand what the rabbis mean by his attribute of divine, his attribute, I can't even read those words. His attribute of mercy is Yehovah. His attribute of justice is Elohim. Okay? So I've given you 3 examples here to try to make it understandable to you. He didn't write it, I didn't make known a noun, a thing, but I was not recognized as the person that the noun describes. He didn't write it, I'm not going to show you a thing. It was written, they didn't recognize me as the person that the noun is about, that the attribute is about. Okay, here's another one. He didn't write it, I didn't make known my address, but I was not recognized as the person at that address. That's a little clearer, I think. How about this one? He didn't write it, I didn't make known my name Michael, but I was not recognized as the person whose name means who is like God, because that's what Michael means. So these are very physical examples to help you understand how this works. How that Hebrew, that one letter difference in the Hebrew works. Not lo hoda'ati, but lo noda'ati. And that's the difference. I didn't say my name is Yehovah. No, sorry, you can't know that. He said they didn't get to know him as Yehovah. Why? Why? Because they didn't receive what was promised. That's what he's saying. That's what the rabbis are saying. And I think they're right. So what we have is El Shaddai is the promise maker, and Yehovah is the promise fulfiller. That's what the rabbis are saying. God not make known the meaning of Yehovah. I have no idea what I'm trying to say there. God not make known the meaning of Yehovah. So what he was not saying was, I'm making known my name. He didn't make known he did not make known the meaning of Yehovah to them. Why? Because they didn't get the promise. They had it given to them, but they didn't have it fulfilled. Okay, you with me so far? This was the hard part. If you can get through this, you'll probably be okay. Rest is easy. This is hard because it's very picky in little parts of Hebrew. You know that song that we sing, Haya Hove Veyavo? It's wrong. It's wrong. It's from the Hebrew translation of the New Testament, which is wrong.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. So, would you agree with me that everything in the New Testament, you have to be able to find it in the Old Testament?
Yes.
Okay. Nowhere does it say in the Old Testament, who was and who is and who's coming in the future to us. He never says that. It says who was, who is, and who will be the same in the future. That's what it says. But they looked at it wrong and they said, who is to come. The word yavo means to physically come somewhere, in proximity to. Like to move from point A to point B. That is not what this is. This is who was in the past, who is in the present, and who will be the same in the future. Well, what's he quoting? He's quoting this.
Like we say in the prayers.
Like we say in the prayers, right. This is what he's quoting. This is from Exodus, I'll show you. It's haya. See that hey?
Yeah.
Hove. See the vav and the hey?
Yeah.
And yay. See the yod? Squash those together, and what do you get? Yod, hey, vav, hey. That's what his name means.
Oh, that's cool.
Very simple, right?
Very.
It's the verb to be.
Huh.
If God was speaking English and he showed up and people said, "What is your name, Lord?" He would say, the verb to be. That's what it is. I was, I am, I'm going to be. That's his name. And you squash those three words that mean that, and you get yod, hey, vav, hey. Very, very simple. And people have turned this into the most complicated thing. But it's real simple. God is. That's it. God is. The God of the Jews is. He was, he is, he's going to be. Isn't that simple? Haya, hove, yiyeh. Not yavo. Yavo means to come in proximity to. So this is from Exodus 3:14. Moshe said to God, "Look, I'm going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they're going to say to me, okay, well, what's his name, Moshe? And what am I going to say to them?" And God said, "Tell them the verb to be. Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I am that I am." The verb to be is the verb to be. That's what he said. Very simple. Now we translate it, I am who I am, or that I am. Not good translation. It's the verb to be is the verb to be. The verb to be, that, is the verb to be. And this is where it comes from in the New Testament that they changed. Revelation 1, chapter 1, verse 4 and verse 8. John to the 7 congregations that are in Asia. Chen lecha, grace to you and shalom from him who is. How do you say that?
Obey.
Hove. And who was? How do you say that? Haya. And who is to come in the future, not to come in proximity. Yay. So he's quoting here Exodus chapter 3. Okay? And then God says it. I am the Aleph and the Tav, says Yehovah Elohim, who is and who was and who is to come. And then he says El Shaddai. Okay. The promise maker, right? But here he's the promise fulfiller. Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
Here's the attribute of mercy. Here's the attribute of justice, the promise fulfiller, and then the promise maker. So now he's brought it all together. So when is this? In the kingdom. It better be in the kingdom because that's when he's the promise fulfiller. Hebrews chapter 11. I was going to read this whole chapter, but I'm tired. So I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to assume you know Hebrews chapter 11. It goes through all these people in the Old Testament that God made promises to.
Right.
There's just so many. There's a whole bunch in there. And then it gets down to the end of the chapter, and it tells us exactly what he said in Exodus, saying, I didn't make myself known as Yehovah. He says it. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, listened, going out to a place that he was to receive for an inheritance. By faith he lived as a stranger in the land of promise because he was looking for the city whose architect and builder is God. By faith even Sarah conceived. All of these guys that I just mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 died in what?
Faith.
Emunah, faithfulness, faith. Without receiving the promises. Every single person that he gave promises to in Hebrews chapter 11, right? They never received what they were promised. Not one of them. None of them. Not Gideon, not Sarah. None of them received the promises. Because it was Shaddai that made the promise to them, but Yehovah is going to fulfill the promise. And that ain't yet. That's not till the kingdom. Got it? Okay. Now, we're going to pick apart one other little thing, and this is the whole rest of the teaching. This is what I'm going to teach about. This is also hard to follow if you're thinking like normative Christianity teaches it. But if you can divorce yourself from it and just have an open mind, what you're going to end up seeing is this. You're going to see this. The birth pangs is the gospel. The gospel means happy message, right? Right?
Yeah.
Besora, literally means happy message.
Right.
The birth pangs is the biggest part of the gospel. And yet, when people talk about, quote, the gospel, they don't talk about the birth pangs, what their church calls the tribulation, do they?
No.
They talk about the book of John, they talk about the coming of Christ, and he takes away your sin, say the sinner's prayer, gospel, done. But the reality is, what you're going to see is this. God shows himself in the attribute of mercy as Yehovah. Yes?
Yes.
When does he fulfill all the promises? In the day of the Lord. He's not Yehovah, not really, not till the day of the Lord. What's the first part of the day of the Lord?
Resurrection.
The birth. Okay, right after the resurrection. What is it?
Birth pangs.
The birth pangs.
Cleansing.
All right? So if you're in the birth pangs, you are in the day of the Lord. So what we should find is this. We should find a whole bunch of passages. I didn't show you all of them. Don't get scared. I only did very, very few that show the birth pangs, and God shows up and says, you're going to know me as Yehovah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you follow that?
Yeah.
It's in the birth pangs that he tells everybody, you're going to know me as Yehovah. Now, in the birth pangs. Did you follow that? Okay. That's what you're going to see, if I do a good job. Exodus 6:9. This is in our Torah portion. So Moshe said this to the sons of Israel, but they wouldn't listen to Moshe on account of their despondency. That's what it says in English. But in Hebrew, it says shortness of breath. Measured, cut off breath. Cut off breath. Mikatsa, breath. Ruach. And cruel bondage. So if you read the words shortness of breath and cruel bondage, where should your mind go?
Birth pangs?
Say it.
Birth
In the birth pangs. Right? That's what you're going to see. You're going to see that this, what their despondency or their shortness of breath and their cruel bondage is a picture of the birth pangs. And they can't hear because of it. They can't hear, they can't see. All right. Here's what Rashi says. Because of their shortness of breath, whoever is under stress, his wind, ruach, and his breath, neshama, are short. And he can't take a deep breath. He can't catch his breath because there's too much pressure on him. And it's all coming on him. He can't catch his breath. This is what we see in the Bible. Similar to this interpretation, namely that what is meant by I am Yehovah is this. I'm faithful to fulfill my word. So, I heard from Rabbi Baruch, the son of Rabbi Eliezer, and he brought me proof of this explanation from this verse. At this time I will let them know my power. At what? At this what?
At this time.
At this time. At this time, whatever the time is, I'll let them know my power and my might, and they will know my name is Yehovah. So whatever the time period is, that's when he's going to let all the Jews know what? His name Yehovah. Right? Okay. He didn't make his name Yehovah known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's going to do it in the kingdom during the birth pangs, under stress, under shortness of breath. Did you follow that?
Yes.
Okay. At this time I'll let them know my power and my might, and they will know that my name is Yehovah. Jeremiah 16, which we'll look at. Rabbi Baruch said, we learn this from that when the Holy One, blessed be he, fulfills his words, even when it's for retribution, even if it's bad, he makes it known that his name is Yehovah. How much more so does the expression apply when he fulfills his word for good? Because Yehovah represents the mercy part of God. And it's in the birth pains? How much more to us that aren't in the birth pains can we see God's mercy as Yehovah? Not fulfilled, but his mercy. Does that make sense? Okay. That's what the rabbi is saying here. Jeremiah 16, Lord, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge in the day of distress. B'yom tzara. Tsar is a name or word for the birth pangs. All the rabbis say that. All of them, without exception, say that the word tsar is a title or an adjective of the birth pangs. And this says, B'yom tzara, in the day of birth pangs, in the day of the Lord. To you, look what it says. To you the Gentiles will come from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, futility, and things of no benefit. Does that excite you when you read that?
Yeah.
That sure excites me. Our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, futility, and things of no benefit. Not the Jews, the Gentiles. Can a person make gods for himself? But they're not gods. Therefore, look, I'm going to make them know. Make who know? The Gentiles will know the name Yehovah.
About time.
About time, right? I'll make them know my power and my might, and they will all know that my name is Yehovah. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
This is during the birth pangs. So, the message to those in birth pangs is not God is always faithful to you. It's not. It's God is always faithful to the Jews.
Right.
Period. That's the message. It has nothing to do with anybody else. God isn't faithful to everybody else. He's only Yehovah to the Jews. In the day of the Lord, Gentiles are going to come and get to know that. Do you understand what I'm saying? The message to those in the birth pains. God is Yehovah. He always is. And will fulfill all the promises that he made to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the fathers.
Right.
To the Jewish people. That's the message of the birth pangs. To everybody else. Now, we say this at the Passover Haggadah. This is a page from the Passover Haggadah when we're telling the story during what's called Magid, which is the telling. He saw our affliction. This refers to the breaking up of their families. As it is written, God looked upon the children of Israel and God knew. He saw our, what is that word? Anybody know?
Sorry.
Tsar. He saw our tsar. He saw our birth pangs. So this is definitely, the Haggadah is telling the story of the Exodus, which is a picture, or it's a shadow of the birth pangs. All right? Job 21. Am I speaking to a man? Why make an issue of me complaining? Am I complaining to a person like me that he should listen to me? I'm talking to God, not people. That's what he's saying. He's saying, why are you busting on me for talking to God? I'm talking to God. I'm not talking to a human. Why then should I not be short of breath to cry out from my birth pangs? That's what he says. My straits, it's the word sarim or tsara. And he says this, he says, why should I not be short of breath to cry out from metzara, from my birth pangs? So Job acted out a picture of people in the birth pangs too. Was Job a Jew or a Gentile?
Gentile. There weren't any Jews yet.
Yes, there were. There were Jews.
Well, I thought he was before that.
He wasn't before Abraham.
Oh, okay.
So where did he live? Anybody know? And don't say Uz, because you don't know where that is.
I don't remember.
You don't know where it is? I know you would. Edom. He was an Edomite.
Oh.
Uz is in Edom. Isn't that weird? He's a Gentile. He's an Edomite. And he is in the birth pangs. And he's calling out to Yehovah. Okay? Isaiah 42, verse 8, and then verse 13 through 14. I am Yehovah, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another. Now, if God says, I am Yehovah, that is my name, when are you?
In the kingdom.
When are you?
The day of the
In the
Lord.
day of the Lord. So let's look. Let's see if it's during the day of the Lord. I will not give my glory to another. The Lord will go forth like a warrior. Okay, there you go. There's the birth pangs.
That's when he does it.
He will arouse his zeal like a man of war. He will utter a shout. Yes, he will raise a war cry. He will prevail against his enemies. I have kept silent. This is God talking now. I've kept silent for a long time. I've kept still and I've held myself back. Now, like a woman in labor, I, God, will groan. I will both gasp and pant. I can't catch my breath. Okay? This is God in birth pangs. Why does God go through birth pangs?
Compassion.
Yeah, for Israel. Compassion for Israel. Because Israel goes through birth pangs. And so in compassion for his people, he goes through birth pangs.
He's going to be in pain too.
And then he says, I will lay waste the mountains and the hills and wither all their vegetation. If you don't recognize that as the birth pangs, you just don't know the Bible, period. So this is definitely during the birth pangs. And he says, I am Yehovah, that is my name. Jeremiah 4. I heard a cry as of a woman in labor, the tsara as one giving birth to her first child, the cry of the daughter of Zion, gasping for breath. She can't catch her breath, stretching out her hand, saying, Oi to me, I faint before murderers. Oh, this is obviously the Jewish people in the birth pangs, giving birth to the Messiah. Where does it say that in the New Testament? Israel giving birth to the Messiah. Oh, you should know this. Revelation what? 12. You were very close. Revelation 12, verse 1 through 3. You should know this. He saw Israel giving birth to the firstborn child of God. And it calls him the Messiah, who will rule the nations with a rod of iron. All right. Now, we're going to look at this. Let's look at this statement one more time. I am faithful to fulfill my word. From this following verse, at this time I will let them know my power and my might, and they will know that my name is Yehovah. Okay, so everybody here has been spanked, I assume. And when you were spanked, you got instant fear and respect for who? The spanker. You're the spankee, and you immediately feel fear and respect for the spanker. Yes? What if he spanks you to death? Would you know and have respect for him?
No.
The dead know nothing, right? Not in the birth pangs. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see that God is going to spank people to death. And the ones that he kills, then they'll know my name is Yehovah. That's what it's going to say. Isn't that weird? It's just, I don't know if you've ever seen that in the scriptures, but there's a lot of them that say this. I will destroy every man of them, and then they shall know that I am Yehovah.
Yeah.
He's fulfilling promises to the Jews when he does this. But the dead know nothing. You're going to learn today, boy.
We'll learn.
Yeah. So, Isaiah 49, let's look at who he is. The people that he's spanking to death are the ones I put in red. Surely thus says Yehovah, not Elohim. Even the captives of the mighty man will be taken away, and the prey of the tyrant will be rescued, because I fight with the one who fights with you, Israel, and I will save your sons. I will feed your oppressors with their own flesh. Oh, I'm going to cut up your brother and feed him to you. That's awful. And they will become drunk with their own blood, as with sweet wine. That is disgusting. And all flesh will know that I am Yehovah. Really? Wow. Your Savior and your Redeemer. This is the gospel. The mighty one of Jacob, not of the earth, not of the whole world, of Jacob, of Israel. You see what I'm saying? This is the gospel. It sounds horrible, it sounds awful, but this is like a big chunk of the gospel. The happy message. Ezekiel 6, 12 through 14. He who is far off. Now let me tell you this is Ezekiel. Ezekiel and Jeremiah were both priests. They were both there, and they witnessed Babylon come and destroy Jerusalem and take away everything from Jerusalem and burn the house and take all the Jews to Babylon. They witnessed it. And before it happened, both Jeremiah and Ezekiel prophesied to all of Judah, saying, you better get your stuff right or God's going to destroy you. And then they prophesied to all the nations around and said stuff. This is that. This is Ezekiel prophesying to Israel at this point, to Judah. He who is far off, that's northern Israel, they're already gone, they're already dead, will die by the plague, and he who is near, that's Judah, his brothers, will fall by the sword. Am I putting you to sleep?
No.
Am I doing okay?
Yes.
Okay. Will fall by the sword, and he who remains and is besieged will die by the famine. Thus I will spend my wrath on them. Then you will know that I am Yehovah. So when is this? This is in the day of the Lord. So what happened to Israel and what happened to Judah is a picture, a shadow of the birth pangs. When their slain are among their idols, all around their altars, on every high hill, on the tops of the mountains, under every green tree and leafy oak. So throughout all their habitations, I'll stretch out my hand against them and make the land more desolate and waste than the desert. Then they'll know that I am Yehovah. It sounds so horrible, but then he goes, and then you'll know that I'm the one who answers all the promises I made, and I fulfill them. Israel? You see what I'm saying? Why I'm saying it's a big part of the gospel? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Ezekiel 7, this part's to Judah. The king will mourn, the prince will be clothed with horror, and the hands of the people of the land will tremble. This is talking to Judah. According to their conduct, I will deal with them, and by their judgments, I'll judge them. And they will know that I am Yehovah. When is this? The day of the Lord, birth pangs. Now he's going to prophesy to all the nations around. And he says, in chapter 25, he prophesies to a bunch of different nations here. Set your face against Ammon and prophesy against them, because you said, aha! They destroyed the temple. Yeah! Because you did that, and when it was profaned, therefore I'm going to give you to the sons of the east, to Babylon, for a possession. I will cut you off from the peoples and destroy you, and then you'll know that I am Yehovah. He's going to destroy them, and then they'll know that I am Yehovah. It just sounds so ridiculous. Right, I'm going to come with a machete, with my mother's lucky machete, chop you and your children up in pieces, and then you'll know that I am Yehovah. Do you see it? It just sounds crazy. But that's what it's saying. And now to Moab and Edom. Because Moab and Seir, which is Edom, say the house of Judah is just like all the Gentiles. There is no difference between Jew and Gentile. We're all the same. Jews, just be like us, man. There's no difference between you and me. Jews are just like everybody else. There's nothing that makes them different. You can't tell a Jew by looking at him. It's just like everybody else, or she, right? That's what Edom says. That's what Rome says. Judah's just like all the nations. Therefore, I am going to give it their lands for a possession along with the sons of Ammon to the sons of Babylon, to the sons of the east. Thus I will execute judgments on Moab, and then they'll know that I am the Lord. I am Yehovah. Yay! It's crazy. How are you going to apply this to your life?
No idea.
You should have an idea by now. I've said it about 40 times. You should have an idea by now. I keep saying it over and over and over again. God, I mean, you're not going to like the way I'm going to say this because I don't seem to be getting it across. So I'm going to say it a little harder. But don't get offended. Just listen to what I'm saying. God doesn't care about the Gentiles. Who does he care about? The Jews. That's all he cares about. So much so that he says, Gentiles, in the day of the Lord, come to Jew land and be like them so you can know me. That's the gospel. That's the gospel. Or God can come and just cut you up and your babies up in pieces, and then you'll know the Lord. You see what I'm saying? There's one or there's the other. Ezekiel 25:15, against the Philistines. Because the Pelishtim have acted in revenge and taken vengeance to destroy with everlasting hatred. They never get rid of their hatred for the Jew. Therefore, I will destroy and execute great vengeance on them with wrathful rebukes, and they will know that I am Yehovah when I chop them up in pieces. You see it? I'm trying to make this as palatable as possible. And remember I said it earlier, I'm not giving you all the verses. I'm just giving you a few, a couple. There's hundreds that say this. Ezekiel 28. When I gather the house of Israel from the people. Oh, when is that? When is that?
Day of the Lord.
It's at the end. It's right after the birth pangs. When I gather the house of Israel from the peoples among whom they are scattered. That's right after the birth pangs. During and right after the birth pangs. Yes?
Yes.
All right, so you're in the day of the Lord. Among whom they are scattered, and will manifest my holiness in them in the sight of all the Gentiles. Then they will live in their land, which I give to my servant Jacob. They'll build houses, they'll plant vineyards, they'll live securely. When I execute judgments on all the people who live around Judah and Israel, then they'll know that I'm Yehovah, their Elohim. What's Elohim?
Justice.
Justice. What's Yehovah?
Mercy.
Mercy. So, because he's talking to the Jews, not the Gentiles, he says their Elohim, their God, the Jewish people's God, the God of Jacob. Now, Ezekiel 29 goes on and on and on. It's like 28, 29, 30, 31. It just goes on and on and on about Egypt in the day of the Lord. So I've trimmed it down to this one little tiny part. You're welcome. Behold, I'm against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon. Where does it say that in the Bible? Revelation what? Come on.
9. I don't know.
One chapter past the Jews giving birth to the Messiah. 13, 1 through 5, I think it is. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lies in the midst of his rivers. I will abandon you to the wilderness. You'll fall on the open field. I've given you, Egypt, for food to the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky. They're going to eat all of you up. You are dead. Dead. Then all the inhabitants of Egypt will know that I am Yehovah After all the birds and the beasts come and eat them all up. Then they'll know I'm Yehovah. You see how crazy this is? You still don't, some of you I think still don't quite get what I'm saying. All right, let me try it from this angle. Matthew 24, which you probably think you know, it's the one that has that is mistranslated to say, but of that, no man knows. Yeah, it does not say that, but you know the myth, okay? It's a myth. It does not say that. Matthew 24, that's verse 36. Well, before that, it says, he says, day of the Lord, day of the Lord, day of the Lord. The sun and the moon will grow dark, and the skies will split apart, and the abomination of desolation will happen, and there will be earthquakes and hailstones and famines and earthquakes all over the place. Day of the Lord, birth pangs, and this gospel of the kingdom will go out to all the world. What's the gospel of the kingdom he's just said? Birth pangs. That's the gospel of the kingdom. The kingdom, the day of the Lord. So he said, I'm going to chop you up and have you eaten by all the beasts. Then the inhabitants of Egypt will know that I am Yehovah. I will bring upon you a sword and cut off from you man and beast. The land of Egypt will become a desolation and waste. Then they will know that I am Yehovah. Yay! Now here's the big one. All of you should know Ezekiel 38. It's about the Russian invasion, Gog and Magog. It's not Russia. It's about the 10 nations that attack in the day of the Lord. Can you name some of the nations? Besides Gog and Magog. What else?
Syria.
Nope. No. Both of you were wrong. No.
Turkey.
Togarmah. That's it.
Persia?
Tyre, no. Persia, good. Anybody else?
China.
You are banished. Really? You should. I thought you guys knew this. All right, so there's 10 nations listed. These are the 10 toes in the kingdom.
Yeah, we went through them.
And they come, yes, we went through them, and they come to Armageddon. Every man's sword will be against his brother. With pestilence and with blood I will enter into judgment with him. And I'll rain on him and on his troops and on the many peoples who are with him a torrential rain with hailstones, fire, and brimstone. I will magnify myself, sanctify myself, and make myself known in the sight of all the Gentiles. And they will know that I am Yehovah. Who will know that I'm Yehovah? Who?
The 10 nations.
The 10 nations. Even though they're dead.
Right.
Then all the Gentiles will know that I'm Yehovah. Because I'm fulfilling my promise. Joel 3. Come to the valley of judgment. This is the same exact situation and environment and event as Ezekiel 38 and 39. It's the valley of Megiddo. Come to the valley of judgment. All the surrounding nations. Who? Who? All the surrounding, all the Gentiles. How many nations are there?
70.
That's who it's talking about. All 70 nations. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, tread, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow. Where is this in Revelation? Oh my gosh, guys.
12.
No, not 12.
11.
Let's say numbers. Here's a pretty number.
13.
Go find it for yourself. I'm not telling you. Chapter 9. Come, tread, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow. The day of the Lord is near. Any doubt as to when this is? The Lord roars from Zion, the heavens and the earth tremble, but the Lord is a refuge for his people. Then you will know that I am Yehovah, your Elohim. So he's talking to Jews. Dwelling in Zion, my holy mountains, so Jerusalem will be holy. This is the gospel. This is the gospel. The gospel is that God loves the Jew. And that he's going to fulfill all his promises to the Jews. Period. That's the gospel. And then there's all the details that go along with that. Fulfillment of in the day of the Lord. That's the gospel. The gospel is all about the day of the Lord, the Jews in the day of the Lord. The Jews before the day of the Lord, the Jews in the day of the Lord. That's the gospel. And if you can follow that story, you got a good chance of really knowing God and knowing like how he thinks and what he wants to do and what he did and why he did it and who he is, his attributes and stuff like that. Here's the gospel. Let's turn the light off. Can you turn the light off? This is the gospel. This is the gospel. This. All the nations coming up to where? Jerusalem in the day of the Lord. But they can't do that until it's all restored.
Right.
So this is the gospel. See this guy blowing the shofar up here? Can you see him? Kind of hidden. And then here's a guy called, that's Jews calling out Judaism from Zion. And the law will go forth from Zion and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Well, who's going to do that?
The Jews.
The Jews. And how do they do that? Judaism. That's the gospel. It goes out to the Gentiles. And then the Gentiles come to Jewland. Not the other way around. Jews don't go to Christian land. That is wrong. Gentiles have to come to God's house.
Yes.
Jew neighborhood. He's in our hood. He's in our hood. So let's look at Da'at et Adonai. Say Da'at et Adonai. I'm sorry, I said Adonai. Da'at et Yehovah. De'ah means knowledge. L'da'at means to know. So you could say L'da'at et Adonai, to know the Lord, or De'ah et Adonai, know the Lord. And it doesn't mean get born again. It means know the Lord. It doesn't mean get married. It means know your wife or your husband. And that's a big truckload of stuff, right? That's a bigger deal than just getting married. Isaiah 11 and Habakkuk 2 both say exactly word for word, except for one word, the same thing. So I've got emboldened what they say. What's the word that's different?
Filled or full?
Nope.
Knowledge. No.
Nope.
That the Habakkuk says of the glory of
Very
God.
good. One word, kavod. Kavod, glory. That's the only difference in the Hebrew. Okay?
Oh, right.
Isaiah 11, and the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard lie down. Okay, let's give you a little quiz. Who's the leopard?
Greece.
Good, Greece. Very good. The leopard will lie down with the little kid. Who's the little kid? Had Gadya, Had Gadya. Who's the little kid?
Israel.
Israel. The leopard, Greece, will lie down with Israel. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Hellenism will lie down with with Judaism. How's that? How's
Down to Judaism?
no? Lie down. It says lie down with. Yes. How's that going to happen? How is a leopard going to come lie down with a little lamb, a little baby lamb? How's that going to happen? Who has to change in this situation? The leopard.
Obviously.
He has to change. And when he's changed and he's more like the lamb, then he can come hang out with the lamb. The Hellenist, the Gentile, must come to Jewland, not the other way around. See? The leopard has to change for this to happen. And the calf, I don't know who that is. That might be Joseph. The calf and the young lion. Who's the lion? No.
Judah, right?
No.
Babylon.
Thank you, Eileen. Babylon.
Oh, we're talking about
The calf, that's probably Ephraim. I have to check the Hebrew. And Babylon and the fatted calf, also probably the Jews, together. How's that going to happen?
Lion changes.
The lion has to change. Yes? They have to come to Jew side, not the Jews go to the Christian side. Just to make it super simple. The cow and the bear. Ooh, who's the bear? Don't say Russia. Who's the bear? Shh. Who's the bear?
Assyria?
No. No, Babylon is the lion.
Persia?
It's in Daniel chapter 8. Really? Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia. Greece is the leopard. Medo-Persia is the bear. Babylon is the lion.
I literally just said Medo-Persia.
I didn't hear you, honey. The cow, the Jews, and Medo-Persia will graze. And their young lie down together. The only way that can happen is if those that are like Persia come be like the Jew. The lion will eat straw like the ox. See, the lion changes. Babylon will change. They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. What's my holy mountain? Stick with Daniel. Stick with Daniel, the prophecies in Daniel. No. My goodness.
Lion?
Do I make you feel like you don't know the Bible very good?
Yeah.
Good.
Every time.
Good. That's what you need. That's me speaking like a rabbi. Good. He says in Daniel chapter 2. Oh, guys, come on. Daniel chapter 2, that in the days of those 10 toes of the big giant head of gold, arms and body of silver, etc. It says, in the days of those 10 toes, which is the day of the Lord, the birth pangs, a stone not cut with human hands will fall from the sky, smash the idol, and grow into a giant what? Mountain. That's the mountain. That's the mountain of the house of the Lord. Not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. That means the kingdom. Throughout the entire kingdom, you're going to have unity, finally, between Jew and Gentile. Stop thinking there's going to be unity between Jew and Gentile now. There isn't, ever, until the kingdom. So you might as well get used to it and deal with it and embrace it and just go with it. Why? Because the earth will be full of the De'ah et Adonai, the knowledge of Jehovah, as waters cover the sea. In other words, the whole earth will know the Lord. The whole earth will do Judaism. The whole earth will come to Jewtown instead of the Jews going to their town. You get what I'm saying? But that's only because of the birth pangs. That happened already. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and founds a town with violence. Is it not indeed from the Lord of hosts that people toil for fire? What does that mean? Is it not indeed from the Lord of hosts that people work for fire? What do we used to always say? It's all going to burn. That's what we used to always say. We'd be driving by and see a big giant house and we go, it's all going to burn. That's true. It's all going to burn. The whole Gentile world works for what's going to burn up. That's from God. It's from the Lord of hosts that the peoples toil for fire and Gentiles grow weary for nothing. Nothing. They get tired from amassing junk. Nothing. That's from God. Now, why would he say it's from God? Because he's going to teach them a different way in the day of the Lord. Because the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yehovah as waters cover the sea. So why does he add that word glory of the Lord? The knowledge of the glory of the Lord. I'll give you a hint.
Glory has to do with like an offering.
Okay, hold on. No.
No.
I'll give you a hint. Here he's talking to Jews. Clearly talking to Jews because of the descriptions and saying, don't worry, Jews, the Gentiles are going to come lay down with you. It's all going to be cool. Yeah? Who's he talking to here? Gentiles. So what's the why does he add the word glory? Because they're going to remember that maybe last year or 20 years ago or 100 years ago or 700 years ago, God came and destroyed the whole earth and destroyed all of our 70 nations. Remember? That's why we get to know Yehovah. Remember? Remember that's what it was like back during the birth pangs? For 1,000 years, Gentiles are going to be doing this. Because they're going to know Yehovah, aren't they? And they're going to remember the glory of the Lord, which is, and you can prove this very easily, just trace whenever the glory of God shows up in the Bible, and guess what you find? Birth pain. Somebody dies.
Destruction of evil.
Destruction of evil. Somebody dies. Every time the glory of God shows up, every time the glory of God shows up, somebody dies. Yes?
Yes.
You do that work on your own, but that's the truth. And what's going to happen is for 1,000 years, for the rest of the 1,000 years, all the Gentiles will be doing Judaism. No more idolatry, no more Hellenism, no more Babylonism. None of it. It will all be Judaism filling the whole earth, and they're going to tell their children, remember back 20 years ago during the birth pangs, and all of the entire nation of Mexico was vaporized? Remember? And then we started building it back, and we started doing Judaism. And now we get to know God, kids. We get to know God, children. Está bien. Orale, we get to know God now.
Right.
And all these Argentinians and Afghanis and Swedes, all their nations are going to be destroyed. And then they'll be built back up as they do Judaism. And they will tell their children during the Haggadah, during Passover, about them coming out of Egypt and being redeemed. And then the whole world will have Da'at et Adonai, the knowledge of God. That sounds like a good place to stop. Let's stand. Now, think about that while we're doing the Aleinu. Think about that. Think about where you come from, where your nation comes from, where your people come from. Think about it, and think about where you're headed as you say the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, l'ted gedula l'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'kol hamonam. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that he has not made us like the nations of the earth, nor has he made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malachei hamalachim hakadosh habaruch hu. And we bend the knee, and we bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is he. The one who spread out the heavens and established the earth. Your majesty is in the heavens, and your mighty presence in the highest heights. Hu Eloheinu ein od. Emet malkeinu efes zulato. He is our God. There is nothing else. Our God is truth. Nothing else compares. As it is written in your Torah, know this day and take it to heart that Adonai is God in the heavens above and on the earth below. Ein od. There is nothing else. So we put our hope in you, Yehovah, our God, to soon see your majestic glory, that you would remove all idols from the earth with that glory and completely cut off all false gods with that glory, perfecting the world in the kingdom of the Lord. When all mankind will call on your name, and all the wicked of the earth will turn to you. Together, let all on earth acknowledge that to you every knee must bend, every tongue swear loyalty, and may all take upon themselves the yoke of your kingdom, and may you reign over them soon and forever. As it is written, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, the Lord will reign forever and ever, as it is said in your Torah. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day, the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Remain standing for the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ba'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'kol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach l'olam al lamei al almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam, v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitalei v'yithalal shmei d'kudisha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechamata da'amiram, ba'alma imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.